Talk Shoe. Recorded live.
Hi, and welcome to the iWonder Sisters. It's Thursday, March 6th, and we're so happy to have you here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Kimmy, are you there? Kimmy?
Yes, I'm here now.
Yay! So I'm Andy.
This is Kim. Thanks, everybody, for joining us, and welcome to another Thursday evening conversation with the iWonder Sisters. And always doing a little bad technology. So, oh my goodness, I'm going to tell you. So, but anyway, we're glad for it, and we're here. This is our third episode on Talk Shoe, and we're glad to be here. We want to welcome everybody back, and we're happy to be continuing a conversation that we started on last week's show when we were talking about vulnerability on episode 2. And we ended because we touched on so many things that had to do with the power of being vulnerable. And we ended with giving a couple resources, and our main one was Brene Brown, the work of Brene Brown, who you can find on YouTube. And if you certainly Google her, you can get her site. And she's amazing and talks a lot about the subject of vulnerability, how to embrace it, and the power and magic behind it. But we touched on so many things that had to do with that. And one of the things we touched on was being authentic, because certainly in order to be vulnerable, you definitely have to be able to be authentic. And we talked a little bit about Julian Smith's book, which is free in PDF form. If you just Google Julian, it's Julien Smith, The Flinch, you'll get to a website where you can download the free book. And what The Flinch is about how we, in moments of realizing that we're about to be totally authentic, we get this fight, flight sort of response where, we get fearful and then we draw back. And, we put on our mask and then come back out again. It also talks about the magic of what it's like to be authentic and how it opens up so many beautiful things in your life, and about how, if we think about it, most of the people that we're drawn to are people that are truly uniquely themselves and not afraid to be so. And so we're going to talk a bit about that today to continue that conversation. And I wanted to start off a bit talking a little bit more about what Julian is trying to get across in the book. There are many things. I'm almost finished. It's not a very long book. But as I said, it's free, and that's a wonderful thing. But he talks about the fact that, Andy, there's a psychological and biological, I guess, response to moments when we feel like we're exposing ourselves too much. And we do it on a personal level as well, but also when we're doing our work, being creative, involved in projects with other people, any situation where we're trying to share or help other people or be helped by someone else, the moment that we feel ourselves being a bit too open, a bit what we call too real, I guess, we get this sort of reflex thing that happens with us where we draw back. And I wanted to start off talking a little bit about a funny story that Oprah told one time about many years ago, how her real success didn't really open up until she was comfortable with who she really was, and she was totally being herself. But when she was like doing news reporting, and I don't remember what station it was or anything like that, but she said she would come in, and every time she sat behind her desk, she would go into this sort of actress voice. You know, she was like, she didn't sound at all like herself. She would just turn on this whole different persona. And one night she did this while reading the news, and, you know, she's reading the teleprompter, and, you know, she's reading this news story, and she's like, and tonight in Canada, and she continues with the story, and then she's like, Canada? What is Canada? And then when she looks again, she's like, oh, is that Canada? So she talks about how she got so caught up in being this character, you know, that she thought she should be when she got on air, instead of just trusting that who she was enough. You know, it really screwed her up. And, of course, that was like a big signal to her that, you know, who are you when you go to work, you know. So I wanted to just bring Andy in and have her talk a bit about, you know, what she thinks about that story, and any sort of personal experiences or not. Maybe that's not an issue with you, because if everybody doesn't know, Andy worked on the stage, and she was an actress in England and in the United States. So can you share a little bit with us about that and how you felt about the story, and also if you have personal experiences with anything like that happening?
You know, I think everybody does. And as I've gotten older, I think my fear of authenticity has dwindled, so that I feel pretty fully realized now, but I'm in my middle age. So, but when I was younger, I always thought I had to put on a face for other people. And when I was in England once, I mean, being an actor too, I mean, you have to put on other faces all the time.
Yeah.
But if you're really a good actor, you bring truth and authenticity, I should say, to the character, which means being vulnerable yourself and bringing that part of yourself that relates to that character.
Yeah.
That's what really good acting is about. It's not about putting on a false face. And anyway, I was in England, and I was working with some healers, some spiritual healers, because one of them told me they thought that I had potential in that area. And I found out about a place that was in a church in mid-London that had like healing modalities there, all different kinds, hands-on, acupuncture, all different kinds of stuff. And I wanted to work for them. So I called them up, and I had a reference. Someone referred me, and I went down to meet the guy who ran the place, and he took me up into this tower in this church. And we sat and talked for a while, and I had put some makeup on and a nice skirt and stuff like that, and, you know, so that I looked nice. And about 15 minutes into our conversation, he sat back and he said to me, you know, I've been feeling like I've been talking to a cardboard cutout, but now I see who you are. And it totally took me off guard. I mean, I was floored. And I guess the little voice inside me said, well, he found you out. And from that moment on, I mean, we talked, and I was much more relaxed and stuff, but it really stunned me that somebody said that. And I realized that it wasn't just in that circumstance that I behaved that way. It was in other circumstances as well. And I think also, too, for me personally, because I've struggled with a mental illness all my life, I've kept a lot of secrets. And as a consequence, when I've been out and about with friends and family, not wanting them to see what was really going on with me, I had to put on a false face. And I had to not be authentic. And it takes an awful lot of energy to do that. It tires you out terribly. And, you know, it wasn't until I totally dissolved that that I was able to be myself and not worry about it. But so, yeah, that's my personal experience with authenticity. And I think that as I've gotten older, I felt more and more that, I mean, what happens is we all go through life wanting approval from other people. And in order to get it, we turn ourselves inside out as human beings. And we truncate ourselves terribly. And as I've gotten older, I've needed approval less and less. And the less I need approval, the more authentic I'm able to be, because I don't really care what other people think. And I think some of that comes with age and a certain kind of wisdom. But I do know young people that are authentic as well. And I can't speak for them, but they inspire me because I was never that way when I was young.
Yeah, you know, wow, this is such like a great subject. I mean, I have to, when Andy's talking, I keep a notepad beside me so I could just write words down. I hope I remember my responses to them. But so many things you said in there, like, really, really resonated with me, because I know also, I mean, I'm 46, and I definitely remember, yes, like being in my 20s. I always say, you know, I mean, I had a lot of fun, and certainly I'm glad to have had those experiences, but it was hard, and I don't know if I could make it through them again, you know, but yeah, I had a much harder time when I was in that age group, like 20 to 30 something, really truly feeling comfortable and safe being myself. And there was something that you said where you said I had to completely dissolve in order for that to really come out. And I think that in a way that's kind of like a theme. I certainly resonate with that, and I think everybody dissolves in a different way. I know for me, when I believe probably after my divorce, I had such really difficult times, and I really had nothing. And at that particular moment in time, I didn't have a career. You know, I didn't have a job at that particular moment either. And I look back now, and I remember, I didn't feel so great about myself at all. You know, in that time period, I don't know if I would have been able to say that, but looking back more clearly, I didn't feel good about who I was. I felt like I had kind of lost myself a bit. And so I remember that as difficult as it was, when I finally came through that time period, which lasted for quite a while, to sort of struggle in a lot of ways, you know, emotionally, financially, my ego was sort of like stripped of everything that it had originally attached itself to formerly. So, you know, because I couldn't say I was a wife. Before that, I was like, I had the title of independent single girl making a lot of money, you know, all these different titles. There were certain times during my marriage, you know, where I did certain things and certain jobs and things like that, and I always kind of attached myself to those jobs or to that work. So, you know, when I was out and about with people, you know, and they say, what do? You know, I always had something to say. So when I went through that time period where I really had nothing to say, so I thought, and nothing to really attach myself to, it was so healing for me, because when I did finally go for a job interview, I mean, it wasn't the first one, but it was the job that I finally got after my divorce. And when I went to the interview, I was so sort of like so tired of the masks and the pretending and all, and trying to be this or that or have a label for myself or whatever. I had been so stripped of all of that I was pretty, raw. And so when I went to the interview, I remember I had fun. I wasn't, of course, sure if I was going to get the job, but I really needed the job. But, at that point, I was just kind of like, oh, I've made it this far. And so when I got done with that interview, the woman said to me, her name was Joanne. I ended up working for her for a few years. And the woman said to me, this is the first time in my 25 years of interviewing people for this job that I'm sitting with someone that I can actually see. She said, I can really see who you are, and that to me is so refreshing. And she even said, you don't have all the qualifications I was looking for, but because of that, I feel like you can do it, and I'm just going to give you a try, And it was so powerful to me because I learned a lot through that. But had she spoken to me, 2 years before that, she probably would have gotten another person. You know what I mean? I'm sure she would have been sitting in front of another person. But I learned a lot about authenticity through her, and, she was a wacky kind of a person. And it's interesting who our teachers are. They don't always show up looking like gurus. They don't always show up looking like yogis. You know what I mean? They really don't. She was a really wacky kind of, neurotic, very overly busy type of woman. But I learned a lot through her about being authentic. And I think it was maybe like after I was on the job for a couple of weeks, my job there was to interview candidates for the school. And this gentleman came and sat in front of me, and I had a bit of a script, but, I had the flexibility to be myself as well. So, I was trying to do a little bit of both. But the guy who was sitting in front of me, really to me, my intuition was telling me that he really wasn't serious at all about going to school. And, as he was talking to me, he was making like a lot of really comical statements. And he was very flip about the whole thing and like, oh, his mom told him to get up off the sofa, so he had to find something to do today. So he decided to be interviewed by our school, like things like that. And, so after he left, not really wanting to sign up or anything, Joanne said to me, so what did you think about that interview? And because she had been listening to me. And I said, well, the thing is, this guy really wasn't serious at all. And to be honest with you, I would have said to him, you're not serious about going to school, and when you are, you can come back, or you don't have to come back, or stop wasting my time. And she looked at me and she goes, yeah, and you were the one who was talking to him, and if that's what you would have said, why didn't you say it? She said, you allowed him to waste your time. And she said, I want you to know something. I hired you for who you are. What you are is enough for me. I mean, this is like a person who was a couple weeks before that a perfect stranger to say that to me. What you are is actually enough. And, of course, she didn't really know how much that meant to me and what a shift that made within me, but it made an incredible shift within me. I'm like, really? Like, I don't have to, like, put on other, masks and layers to, to really do what you want me to do. I can just be myself. And so eventually I got better at that job and more myself, and so I learned a lot through that. She was a great teacher in that way for me, and I learned a lot on that job, and it provided a lot of things that I needed, and there was certainly a magic, in me being myself, and I don't know, Andy, I think that when you were talking about how certainly today and probably in every generation there are young people who come into the world that way or who learn it very early or who just never have an issue with it at all. Do you think that, in your opinion, are there any factors? Because I certainly felt like I was very well supported growing up, being who I am, but I felt like there was just something within me that made me uncomfortable about it. So I don't know. Do you think it's more the norm that we are uncomfortable and those who aren't, have something special? Or I'm not sure what the key is.
I'm not sure either. I mean, I know in my case, I was forced by my family circumstances to not be who I was because no one wanted to know me, i.e. my parents. They didn't want to know who I was, so I was forced to not be me in order to be accepted. And I honestly don't know. I think parents today are a little bit more tuned in to discovering who their child really is and to allowing that person to flower on his or her own with guidance and support. I mean, I think, I mean, if I can talk about you for a second, if you don't mind.
Sure.
You told me that the women in your family were told not to show any vulnerability.
Yeah.
And so it stands to reason in my mind anyway that you would have spent a lot of time putting on a mask in order to get through your life. Not letting people get too close. All that takes a lot of energy, and as you said before, when you went for this interview, you were so tired, and no wonder, because you have to spend so much energy to keep up a false front, or to keep up any kind of front, whether it's false or a little bit false. So I think some of it's generational. I mean, I think, but not all the time. It's I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is I don't know.
I mean, that's very authentic. I mean, I suppose like with everything, there's so many reasons why we put on the masks, and so many reasons why we feel maybe a little bit uncomfortable with who we are, and a lot of reasons why certain times we don't show ourselves fully. I think sometimes we don't know how. I think that's certainly a simple but complex reason that we never knew how. Sometimes it's about a level of trust. I know for me, many things that I have worked through and am still working through have to do with trust. Trusting myself. We talked a little bit about trust this morning, and about trusting ourselves. First of all, which is like a huge thing. Trusting what we think, what we feel, what we know to be true within ourselves. And that lack of trust, I think, with ourselves, within ourselves, for ourselves, leads to that being the same thing that we feel, of course, with other people. And for me, I know that was a huge thing, and it's still, I mean, every day I go through, every day I interact with people in any way, I go through a feeling, there's probably at least one time where I have that flinch feeling, that feeling of maybe I just shared too much or exposed too much, was too open, and hopefully, they won't use it against me or something like that. Like, it's not always a whole complete thought, but it's more of a feeling. It's more of something I can notice, I'm aware of now within myself, that I'm talking to someone and I may really like the person and like who I think they are, and then, something within me says, but wait, wait and see, things like that. So, I have to say, I definitely understand that sort of, and, for me, it is about, it's sort of that, I don't know, for a lack of a better word, like that animalistic sort of protective mode that I go into that just is like an alarm to me, that maybe I should hold back a little bit, I mean, watching you, Andy, it doesn't seem as if that you ever experienced that feeling because you seem so naturally comfortable and like, well, whatever it is going to be or whoever they're going to be, is that something that you ever experienced, do you think, like that flinch moment where maybe I should draw back?
Oh, yeah, all the time. All the time. I mean, not necessarily recently, but yeah, all the time, especially when I was younger and had to, like I said before, keep secrets. I kept secrets from my best friends. And and when I would be with them, and these were people that if I was authentic at all, I was authentic with them. They knew me. But I still had secrets from them, and every now and then I'd find myself in a situation where I had to make a decision. Do I say what I really mean and risk alienating this person or getting them afraid to be around me, or do I hold back? And most of the time I held back because I had to. I didn't feel like I could risk. I mean, and the funny thing is, some of the people that I was like this around are people who, when I really did dissolve and had to go into the hospital and be taken care of and things like that, these were the people that came to see me immediately at my worst.
Yes. Wow.
I mean, that's the irony. That's the irony of it. These were the people that I thought I was protecting from horrible me, and these were the people that came to see me when I was at my worst and didn't care and said, I don't care how you are, I just want to hold you.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's like, to me anyway, that's a part of that magic that's released in those pure moments when we can't be anything but ourselves. There's, I mean, I totally understand that magic that happens because were it not for that moment when you couldn't be anything but you, who you were in that moment, you wouldn't have known that feeling. And also you wouldn't have known that truth about them. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And, I mean, I think that's really, that's the power in it. I mean, I remember so many times when my mom was sick. My mom during her lifetime had 3 strokes, had a very small stroke. Strokes tend to progress in their severity. The last one was really, really big, which she actually did almost fully recover from. But I remember her telling me that had it not been for those moments when she couldn't do anything at all for herself, she would have never known the love that was out there for her. And she said, to me, I always thought, that you really loved me, and that other people really loved me. But once that happened, I knew it. I knew it. It was like the magic of it really, really hit her. And I thought that was very powerful. I mean, that stands out to me more now than it did then. I mean, I thought it was awesome then, but I truly understand what that was about much more now, And for everyone that may just be joining us in the conversation, we're talking about the magic that can be released into your life when you're truly authentic. and what are we afraid of? What stops us from just being ourselves? And also I find too that the opposite happens. Whenever we're inauthentic, things are not as powerful as they could be. Like, I'll give a good example. Like today, and this happens to me a lot on Facebook. But when I say I have those flinch moments at least once every day. It's true, because lots of times something will come to me, or I'll read something on Facebook, and it ignites such passion in me. It's like, what? Either way, I'm like totally ecstatic in joy, or, it may make me think about something, or I want to respond to it because I so totally disagree, and I'll start typing my response or my post to it. And as I'm typing my post, like, I keep changing words, and then by the time I get to the end of it, I'm like, that's not really what I wanted to say. That doesn't sound anything like what was in my head. So today, Angie, I read you that post
right
that I wrote because someone had reposted this Tea Party photo or whatever, saying something about, men and women are here to procreate, and basically like if you're not having babies, that you're missing your main purpose on the planet or something like that. So, that really just ignited like a fire within me. So when I got ready to type my post in response to that, I said, like, the first reflex, my first thought was, to kind of tone it down or water it down. Or maybe should I post it? I don't know, am I going to get mothers upset? Am I going to, I don't know who I'm going to upset. But I'm going to tell you, it really only lasted for a second. And I said, you know what? No, I have to write this exactly the way it's coming into my head. And so I did it. And, and I said to myself, those who will agree, they'll click like, and those who want, they can keep right on scrolling. You know what I mean? And so I was glad. I had much more satisfaction out of just putting it the way that it originally came into my head than thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about who might I offend and who's going to, be bothered by it, or maybe they're going to think it's too rough or too, whatever it is. And I had to let it go. But, that's a perfect example because many times I don't let it go, and I water down my own feelings so much that honestly, there are times I just don't even post, but, or I post something, I'm trying to like put something in there for everybody to like, you know what I mean? And so, and then I'm much less rewarded and much less satisfied. And also, I find that the things that are most authentic, when I just go ahead and I'm just like, okay, I don't care, I'm maybe stepping on toes, but whatever, this is how I feel about the situation. People are like, oh, I like, you know what I mean? So I really think that that's a lot of what, Julian talks about in the book, what he's trying to get across about that, that magic and the power. And when we think about it, a lot of the people that we really resonate with don't hold back. Mm-hmm. They don't hold back who they are, whoever that is. I mean, look at, Auntie has some favorites like, Jon Stewart, and who do you like more? Or Stephen Colbert. But they're perfect examples, though, of people that other people know that have a, they are who they are. And if they were any less of who they are, then I don't think that they would be as popular with who they're popular with. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, I mean, I see people like that in all areas of life, and I certainly think that there's definitely something to that because, like you said, it's very tiring to not be yourself, and I think it would be difficult. I mean, you could speak on this, Andy, because this is only my opinion. I think it would be difficult to reach the pinnacle or mastery of whatever it is that you're doing and reach as many people as maybe you want to reach if you're constantly holding back and rethinking yourself. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. I think that the kind of energy that it takes to not be who you are far exceeds the energy that it takes to be who you are.
Yeah.
And the more authentic you are, the more people are going to resonate with you or not.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
they don't have the opportunity if they don't see who you are.
Right. Yeah.
And I was thinking while you were talking, appearance is so important, especially here in the States, in our culture. What we look like, how we present ourselves, the presenting part of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's held in such high regard here that it's very hard for people, I think, to actually say what they mean, to be who they are, to even know who they are, because the longer you go around being inauthentic, the less self-awareness you have.
Yes.
And
yes.
And the less self-awareness you have means you just become more and more distant from yourself as years go by. And I think a lot of people fall into that pit. And once you're in it, it's very hard to climb out, especially as you get older. And, you have to have some kind of epiphany. Something has to happen to you to make you realize that all the energy you're expending, putting on being someone that you're not, is self-defeating, and it can kill you. I mean, in severe cases, it can kill you.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder, is it, you and I have talked about this on different subject matters about age and growing, getting wiser or not, or learning something or not, changing or not. Is it possible that that many people can be born and live and live a long time and never truly be able to get to that point where they're comfortable with being who they are? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's completely possible. I think it happens more times than it doesn't. Even nowadays, I think it happens far more than it doesn't. I think true authenticity is linked to vulnerability inextricably.
Yeah.
And as long as you're afraid of one, you're going to be afraid of the other, and you can't have one without the other.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's interesting. We were talking about how all of our subjects are sort of, connecting so naturally, because we don't spend a lot of time, dwelling on what we're going to discuss for the next show. I mean, if one of us has like an idea that is really pressing, or something like that, then we mention it or whatever. But since we've been doing the shows on Talk Shoot here, they've just been kind of being born on their own, and I think that's pretty awesome. And they're also, like I tell a lot of people who are like, my friends on social media and things like that, they'll say, oh, Kim, thanks so much for reminding me of this, or, boy, I really need to hear that today. And I'm like, yeah, so did I. That's why I posted it. That's why I tweeted it and posted it, because, so did I. And I think that, for me anyway, a lot of what we do here and the discussions that we share here, they're things that for me, are part of my own process, and things that we talk about on an everyday basis almost, and I love that, and it's speaking about the magic that comes with authenticity. You can sit and there's a lot of ways that we could do these shows, and a lot of ways the shows can be done. And I've done other types of shows where certainly they had to be planned minute by minute because I had guests and things like that and music to play. And it was just like a different type of show. But I really love the way that we can get on here and actually really truly be authentic and talk about what naturally comes up, what naturally arises during the course of the week, or what naturally arises at the end of one conversation that, because the hour always comes so quick for us, and we get to the end and there's always something else, and so I think that, for me, I think for Andy it was easier, but I'll let her answer that. But for me, because I'm so organized in certain ways about things, I had to think, what's the best way to present this show in the way that we want to present it? And is it sort of writing down every minute of the show and every minute of the discussion, and thinking of the discussions maybe 5-6 weeks ahead of time, or is it much more natural to just let it flow as it is? And I have to say that I feel really good about the flow of conversation that has happened, and I think that that resonates with a lot of people. So I don't know. I mean, Andy, you can be pretty organized, like with your work, and Anthony and I both freelance write as well. She's far more organized in that area than I am. But but how do you feel? Is what we do on a comfort level for you, or would you prefer something more organized?
Having been an actor for so long, it would be easy for me to say it would be nice if there were a script. However, I don't feel that way at all. You and I have had some of our best conversations totally unexpectedly, and I think that's what we can bring to this show. You and I interacting is far more interesting than having things written down. I think for each show, it's not a bad idea to think of a topic, something that we'd like to talk about that means something to us. But I think as far as preparing, it's a lot better, I think, to just wing it and see what comes up, because we're both fairly intelligent women and have our opinions and a lot to say. So I think, this has nothing to do with not being organized, mind you, So, I like it better that we just kind of think of a topic that we want to delve into and do it. If you and I didn't have the kind of conversations that we have, I'd say maybe it might be necessary to break the topic down into different sections and do that kind of thing. But when you and I talk about stuff, it's pretty deep and pretty real. And, and I think that's our strength here on the show.
I certainly do too, and I see the way that that, as I said, everything seems like it's just naturally being born, and every topic seems like it's sort of calling to us instead of us picking a topic and saying this is what we need to talk about, and as I said, for me, certainly there are things that are on my mind and that I'm processing and that I'm going through the process of, and iWonder is about sharing that with other women, and certainly men if they want to listen, but it's for us, it's about sharing it, with our with our spiritual sisters and sharing the things that we're learning, and all of that, kind of lays you out wide open. I mean, it really does. It kind of, every time we send the link around to the show, I'm kind of like, what did I say? What story did I tell? And it's so funny. It's interesting, though. It's powerful because all of that has to do everything with what we talk about, the vulnerability, the being authentic, being who you are, not being afraid of who you are, not being afraid to show, any signs of being vulnerable, all of it is about being wide open. And so certainly I am moving along that path very nicely. I haven't arrived at the location as of yet.
And Kimmy, I don't think you ever arrive. I think it's always a process for everybody.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Angie. I love speaking of authentic people. I was introduced at a women's exchange here to a book by an author that Andy has loved for a long time. Her name is Stark. And so I found one of her books, at this women's exchange place where you could just donate whatever you want to donate. And it has just been the joy of, like, my existence since I've been reading it. And but she has, like, all of these wonderful, quotes. And one of the things, I love a lot of things about the way that she writes. But one of the things that I also love is that she does so much referring, like, other people, like, these are books I love, these are people I love, And so she mentioned a book by Maya Angelou on one of these lists, but she also talked about a quote, and she said that Maya Angelou said that whenever she hears someone say, I'm a Christian, I say, really? Already? And I thought that took a lifetime. So you can replace the word Christian with anything you want, but, the point she was trying to get across is that it's all a process. But I thought that was, so I checked that page off. I said, wow, that's really, really amazing. But, and as I said, you can replace the word Christian with anything that you would like, but it's all a process, and it is about, one of my friends in Philly said, I'm so tired of everybody using the word journey. What's with this word journey now? He actually said, emailed that to me one day, what's with this word journey? And I'm like, what? Everybody's on a journey. I'm like, yeah, because everybody is, but it is a journey. It certainly is a journey. And that's why everybody's, becoming aware of that now because, as Andy said, there appears to be no finish line. I don't know if you felt this way, Andy, because, our lives have taken such crazy paths to get, for us to meet. But I know when I was in my 20s, silly enough, I thought when I turned 30, I really thought this. I'm like, I'm going to be so wise. I can't wait till I'm 30. Like I was like, oh, and my cousin Mo, who Andy knows, is my best friend, and we say, yeah, when we get 30, we're not going to be foolish, oh, we're going to know so much stuff. And then we turned 30, and it just seemed like everything fell apart. And then we said, boy, we can't wait till we get 40. When we get 40, we are going to be, when we get 40, we're going to be so wise, And then 40 came, and I knew a bit more, So, but now I know enough. I'm wise enough to say that, when I get 50, I know that I'm still going to be looking for more, learning more, trying to get to a better place within myself. So I don't know, did you ever feel that way when you were like in your 20s?
No, I never thought I knew anything. I mean, no, that's not entirely true. That's a bit of a lie. I mean, when you're very young, you think you know everything,
Yeah.
and I think that comes with the territory. It's sort of age appropriate. I think at certain ages, you really do think you're indestructible and that you know all there is to know. But for the most part, I never thought I was going to reach an age and suddenly be wise. I think wisdom for me has been something that has sort of crept up on me. And I would venture to say that I was probably wiser than a lot of my peers when I was young. Just because of my own experiences, but and too because of my intelligence. But I mean, look, for me, when I turned 50, I suddenly felt like I was released, that I could let go of so much crap. And but even then, you know, I mean, it wasn't until I turned 60 that I came out of the closet.
Wow.
And that was a big deal. You know, I turned 60 and suddenly I you know, I discovered who I was on a different level, you know, and you know, that's another thing too. You know, a lot of people go through life wanting to label themselves. They have to have labels. Their labels concern their jobs, their marital status, their number of children and dogs, and their cars, and whatever it is. And to let go of all those labels and just be is a very scary alternative.
Yeah.
It's very, very scary. Most people feel like if they're not their labels, who the hell are they?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and so it's very hard to let go of that stuff. And I think it's just as hard nowadays as it was, you know, 100 years ago. You know, everybody had their labels. Who they were was sort of written on their shirts, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that's so self-defeating. But everybody comes to wisdom at a different time in their lives. Some people do come into it at 30, and some people come into it younger. I mean, I know a lot of old souls who are, you know, young enough to be my grandchild.
Yeah.
But it's an individual thing, and like you said, you know, it's a process, and it doesn't end. There is no destination. You don't suddenly reach the goal, which is complete self-awareness and self-acceptance. And, you know, I mean, you're always learning more because we change so much all the time. And unless you can go with the flow of change, you're bound to get stuck and to not know who you are completely.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do. You know, I do, because I was thinking to myself, I think it was yesterday, I was thinking to myself, you know, how much I love being here. Andy and I have talked about our relocation here to New Mexico, and we're in such a beautiful area. And I was thinking yesterday, I think it was, to myself, that years ago, I always thought I wanted to live in San Francisco or that area. You know, I had visited and I really, you know, loved it and thought it was just a great city. And then this past fall, when I ventured there into that area for a very short period of time, what I thought was going to be a long period of time turned into a very short period of time. You know, nothing was right at all. And but also, you know, I don't think I told you, Andy, but I mean, it was kind of, it seemed like a small thing compared to everything else. But when I was living in the Oakland area, but when I did go to San Francisco while I was there, it didn't even have the same feel to me. Granted, if someone were to ask me, list your favorite top 5 cities in the U.S., San Francisco would probably still be on there. But the interesting thing was, when I went there, I didn't feel at all what I had felt years before. The energy was just different. I was different. And it just wasn't, it didn't feel the same to me at all. And so I was thinking to myself yesterday, it's good, in these exact words, this is what I thought, it's good to check in with ourselves. It's good to check back in, because I'm not the person that I was the last time that I was in San Francisco. So much has changed. I've seen so many different things. I've experienced different things. I'm not at all that person, really. I mean, sure, of course, there are remnants of the core being there, but a lot of things about me have changed so much that I remember I thought there was so many people. Like, when I got off the train, I was like, what is this? Like, it was just so crowded. And, just the hustle and bustle. And, Andy and I both were city girls. And I thought this was really happening to me at that time period in my life when I was. But I didn't find it to bring to me that same feeling that it brought to me years ago. Now, I use that as a great example because certainly San Francisco's a great city. I don't have nothing against it. It's just not where I want to live. But I would have never thought, 5 years ago, or maybe even 2 years ago, that I would be living on a horse ranch and would want to live this way. So, being authentic, and, I thought to myself, it's really good that we check in with ourselves every now and then and see, who we are becoming. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do completely. Yes, I do.
Yeah, I didn't check in.
But you have to remember, too, we change all the time. And change is a crucial element in authenticity, because unless you're willing to accept change, you're never going to be authentic all the time. Because we change constantly. Our opinions change. Our likes and dislikes change. Everything about us changes all the time. And unless you're willing to go with that flow, you're not going to know who you are at any given moment.
Yeah. I mean, I found that out. I mean, I didn't think about it that way then, but just in reflection of where I am now, I was able to look more clearly, and say, wow, I didn't check in with myself, to see who I really was, so, it's all, in the end, it's all good, in the end, it's all good, because I really appreciated that revelation, because going forward, I'll know to check in with myself, to not lose that connection, as you said, and to not, to check in at my evolution, to see how things are changing with me at all times, and now I'll have more appreciation for that, and I'll have more awareness of it as well. So so in that, I love. So anyway, once again, it's 6:30.
Oh my God!
Yeah, Mountain Time, and it's 8:30 on the East Coast there. So so we thank you guys once again for joining us. This is so rewarding. I mean, we always do a high five. We love doing the show. It's so great, and it's really an extension of our living, I think, which is most beautiful. So thank you again, Andy, as always.
Thank you, Kimmy.
And I hope everyone joins us, and please pass it around, send the link around if you find anything at all rewarding, positive, uplifting about our conversations, please share, because that's what the iWonder Sisters are about, and invite people to listen in. And we thank everybody, and we'll be here next Thursday again. It's 5:30 Mountain Time, 7:30 on the East Coast, and 4:30 on the West Coast.
Yes.
so just look it up. So thanks to everyone, and Andy and I will say goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Good night, everyone.